Okay. Yep, that's recording. So, just before we get started, I want to remind you that everything that you say can be removed or edited at any time if you would like. At any point in this interview, you have the right to withdraw, just stand up and walk away.
Yeah, famous desk and go.
Exactly. And also afterwards, if you have any afterthoughts or if you want to amend anything you said, you just let us know. We'll do that.
Right.
Everything that you say will be anonymized, so your identity will be kept confidential. And really the point of this chat is just to understand your experience here at HKU and as an international student. So, with that, why don't you go ahead and tell me... Oh, also, sorry, I'll be taking notes, and if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
And if at any point you want to look at my notes, feel free. You can ask what I'm writing. So why don't you go ahead and tell me why you came to this interview?
I think several reasons. One is, when you look at the email, it struck me like you actually classify mainland students as international, and that's not normal here in Hong Kong U, because usually you will say local students, mainland students, and international students. Mm-hmm. So that's like a point that really struck me. Mm-hmm. And the second one is quite personal, because Dr. Jackson is my co-supervisor. I was like, okay, I'd love to participate in her research. And third is just, I think it's meaningful that I'm myself is doing qualitative research also, and I also do interviews, and I really like the process of interviewing people, that you get really to share your experience. And I don't know, I think mainland PhD students' experience here are not so much heard. Right. So I'd like to, I think it'll make a good contribution that your research, will add into the understanding of our group's experience at Hong Kong U. So I think it's meaningful. Yeah. That's it.
Okay, why don't we start with that? What is your experience? What is the mainland experience?
I think I would rather that you ask more specific questions.
Okay. What is it specifically about your experience that you feel isn't really heard? Because you said the mainland students' experience isn't really voiced.
Well, in that regard, I wonder if anyone's experience is really heard. But one striking thing about mainland students, or maybe you notice that also, is that we are used to stay in a group. So it's like, here I'm in Hong Kong and I'm surrounded by local and international, students from other countries. But really, most mainland students just stick to their group and speak Mandarin every day. Just go in the canteen with the same bunch of poor people. So it's like, I think what I feel is a general lack of interaction with other groups at Hong Kong U.
Other groups of...
Yeah, locals and people from other countries.
What do you think are the reasons behind that lack of interaction?
One thing to be specific, I'm talking only about doctoral students.
Right.
So my colleagues, undergraduates, are totally different stuff.
Right.
Yeah. I think one thing is that because we are doctoral students, so we've been through undergraduate and master programs, and I don't know, maybe as we grow older, we just have less interest in socializing ourselves, and also we have a lot of work to do. I think that's objective too. And also, maybe the reason, not for me, but for many people, is that they don't have the experience of being an international student in an overseas institution before. So they are used to this style of, all Chinese around. So, yeah.
So what is different about the overseas experience? What is it? What is different about? You said that you think some people don't have the experience of going to an overseas institution. Mm-hmm. What is the biggest difference?
Oh, that's pretty personal idea. So, I went to the U.S. as an undergraduate, so that made me really comfortable speaking English and socialize with English speakers. And also, when you went out as an undergraduate, you were really socializing with the local people, party together and going to see movies, going to Walmart, and all kinds of activities. But as a doctoral student, if it is your this is just my imagination. If it is your first time, in an international context, you're not really, so outgoing because you're so worried about your work, and it seems that everything you can talk with your international fellow students is about research. And sometimes it makes many students really nervous to talk about research in English because, for one thing, they're not used to talk in English anyway. But then you have to talk about your research in English. That's like double scary.
Right.
Yeah, I think that hold back many people to socialize themselves.
That meaning the language barrier.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think that the language barrier is... How about the language barrier between faculty and mainland students? Is there one?
You mean the Faculty of Education and students? No, I don't think. I don't think the lack of communication between the faculty and mainland students are due to the language problem because, well, I think. Professors, they speak English, and all the staff in the research office, they can actually speak Mandarin. So that's never a problem. But I think many students seem to... I think it's the cultural thing. So in mainland China, we don't actually communicate with the executive staff or teachers in a university because... I think it's just different style thing because in China, my experience that the executive staff tell you what to do and you don't bother them for what you want. And so I think even when many students here, they encounter some problem, they won't think about communicating with the faculty to solve that problem because it's not what they get used to. But actually, they can solve it. It's a real pity.
So you think that maybe there's people are resistant to seek help because that's not what's normal for them? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Or because this is really bad about mainland China is that the executive staff at universities, not all of them, but the majority of them that I encountered are pretty rude. So if you have a problem and you go there, they were like, why are you bothering me with this problem? It's your personal problem.
Okay, so you think that perhaps previous negative experiences with staff make it less likely? Or
previous lack of experience.
Is, in your opinion, do you think that, I don't know if you have experience interacting with the staff here, I don't know how much interaction you've had, but in your experience, is there anything that the staff does or the staff do or don't do that will affect your willingness or ability to go and seek help?
No, not exactly. I think they are pretty responsive and they are always helpful. So I can give you one example actually. So when we arrive here, we're all allocated with a seat in the office. Mm-hmm. And, it's a big office for one ramen shop. And, not everybody gets an ideal seat. But there are plenty of seats there that nobody uses. So actually you can apply to change your seat to another place with better, quieter things like that. Right. So, I tried it. It's pretty easy that you just send an email to the staff and research office saying that, it is possible that I change my seat, and they're allowed to do it, actually. But I talked with some of my mainland colleagues, and they're so concerned that I think it is against regulation. I'd rather just do it myself, rather than ask for them. Maybe they don't allow me to do it. So they have this. I think it's negative, impression about executive staff at the university.
Do you think this negative impression is specifically for mainland students, or in general, or international students, or only local students?
I don't know about your students. Well, my experience is limited to mainland China university and American universities, and I don't think the Americans are shy to ask for anything.
Yeah. Have you had conversations with your colleagues about this, and what is the general?
Yeah, I always encourage them to write an email and go there in person. Just ask for. I mean, they may deny your request, but at least you can try to communicate with them about your concerns and stuff. But I don't think that's very helpful for them. Though.
Would you say that the main reason behind that is that that's not what they're used to, or is it language, or is it something else?
I don't think it's a language.
Not language.
Because, many of my colleagues can actually speak Cantonese.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay.
I think it's mainly about their previous experience.
Mm-hmm.
That's my theory, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. What about at the beginning? You said that you found it quite interesting, the wording in the recruitment international versus mainland students, and how you don't identify as, or I don't know, do you identify as international, or do you identify as, or what about that was interesting to you?
I think it's pretty standard in Hong Kong U that students are classified in 3 groups. So mainlanders, locals, and international students. So this was actually the first time I saw mainland students I encountered into international students. So I don't know why you choose to do that, but that's pretty interesting to me.
What about it is interesting?
Or just, I think everybody here doesn't really count mainlanders as international.
Right. Okay. Do you feel like an international student?
I feel like a non-local. So I won't say well, when I think about it, I won't say I'm international here, because I think the Chinese ethnicity make it hard to feel international, but I'm non-local as well. I can feel the difference between local and non-locals.
What are some of those differences?
Oh, I think that's the language thing came into the thing. It's I think you may feel more integrated into the local community if you can speak Cantonese. But that's mainly from my experience living in the residential colleges and halls. But as doctoral students, you may notice that there are so few locals taking PhD programs. So actually, my colleagues majority of them are mainlanders and international students from other countries.
Mm-hmm.
And just only a couple of locals in our office.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have the experience as non-locals as a PhD student working here.
Right.
But when I go back to the residential college and halls, I can feel that the local students are a group and everybody else is a group.
Right. So in the office, it's more mainlanders and internationals, and then a small portion of locals. But then in the halls, it's more local and non-local feel.
And in the office, the locals seldom come because they have. It's not very comfortable working in the office anyway, when they can work from home.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, what about life in halls? How is life in halls for you?
That's complicated. 'Cause I've been living in the hall for only 3 months now, and undergraduate halls are so different from residential colleges in Longhua, in Canada Town. So Okay, I think I first talk about my experience in the college. So the college, the experience is more like people are more disciplined there,
Okay.
quieter, and I actually met with many postgraduate students there. But for the undergraduate hall that I'm living now, I'm the only postgraduate in my floor.
Wow.
And everybody else is undergraduate. And they're more lively in the hall. That's not what I expect. And yeah, I think there's actually more interaction in the halls. Whereas in residential college, I think because we all have single rooms.
In the college or in the halls?
In the college.
Okay.
So we have single rooms, so we can just stay in our room without actually going out. And the pantry is a little bit far away from the rooms, so it's residential college is just like you are living by your own in your own room.
Right.
Except for high table dinners, you don't actually meet your floor mates.
Right.
But in the halls, it's like more interaction because the pantry is pretty near. You have to go through that every day.
Mm-hmm.
And the undergraduate fellows are pretty lively. So even if you don't want to be interactive, they'll drag you there in their activities.
So you use the word drag. Does that imply that you don't want like these events are obligatory or?
I said even if you don't want to, but sometimes I really don't want to.
Right.
Because they can party till like 1, 2 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a little bit too much for me.
So these events you sometimes feel like, but you're obliged to go, right? Is that one of the conditions to stay in the halls?
Oh no. But if they party in the pantry, I mean, you
Right.
can't fall asleep anyway.
Right, the noise and okay. So this is the undergraduate hall.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, what was the reason you moved from residential college to the undergraduate hall?
That's the worst thing I feel about Hong Kong. You have to apply for accommodation every year, and the residential college is that because I have to check out early because I have to collect my data in mainland China, and it's not a rule, but it's like everybody knows that if you check out early, then you cannot be readmitted into the same college that year. So it's not that I have any bad experience in college. It's just my chance to get in again is pretty low.
Right.
And then I have a colleague who's a tutor at the hall I'm staying now, and she told me that we actually have single rooms for postgraduate, but nobody knows that. Okay. So if you apply and put that your priority choice, you'll probably get in. Big chance. So I just tried it.
Okay. Is that it? Are you happy with the decision?
Yeah.
How was the reapplication process? Was it easy? Was it a hassle?
It differs between colleges, but the one I stayed in is pretty easy.
Okay.
So as long as you attend all the high table dinners and you perform well in the readmission interviews, they'll let you stay there for another year.
Do you have any thoughts on the components of the components of the application, such as the interview, or?
The interviews, I don't know what they're looking at really. It seems like as long as you can talk and you're not a boring person, you can get in. You know what? I did altogether 3 interviews in the residential halls. Like they asked me 3 times, so what's your research? I was like, that has anything to do with am I qualified to stay here?
Right.
And I have a colleague being asked, what's your favorite Shakespeare play?
Really? Wow. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. What about social life in halls? You mentioned that undergraduates can be quite lively and stay up quite late. What about, do you want to meet people in the halls? Do you want to be involved, or is this something that's not really a priority for you?
I won't say that's my priority, but I'm fine with it. And if I am not, too occupied with work and deadlines, I'm pretty willing to join in.
Okay, good. And this is your second year?
It's my final year.
Oh, your final year. Okay. Okay, great. I guess we can follow these questions. What are expectations? You mentioned that you had an experience going to school in the U.S. And then now in Hong Kong. What are some expectations that you had, and were they met, or specifically to HKU, not really Hong Kong in general?
I guess as a person applying for PhD programs, your expectations are really, who's the supervisor you're going to be working with, and the network, like who are the faculty members. So will you be able to build a scholar network around yourself and establish yourself as a young researcher? So those were the main concerns you had when choosing which university to apply for a PhD program. So that's pretty different from what I would think about in undergraduate years.
Right.
Yeah, and I think in that regard, Hong Kong is a pretty good choice, because I'm doing research on education in China. So Hong Kong is like a research hub right outside the mainland China. So it's convenient, and I have a very super nice supervisor here, and but with good expertise and good knowledge and good network doing research in mainland China.
Right. So would you say, what is your relationship like with your supervisor?
Well, he's supportive, and he basically let me do whatever I want, but he also gives constructive advice when I need it. So it's pretty flexible working with my supervisor.
So it's a good match, would you say?
Yeah.
Great. That's really good to hear. Sometimes we have participants come in and say not so positive things about their supervisor, the nature of their relationship.
I have stories. But the thing is, I met my supervisor way before I applied for PhD. So I kind of know this person beforehand.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay. Everything that you've said so far sounds quite positive. Is there anything that you would like to see change that would maybe that didn't work so much for you?
Well, one thing I always think a little bit weird is that we have a really nice faculty of education here, but my experience is quite limited to my own research, my dissertation project, and my colleagues in PAS. So it seems to me that every year I only get to meet students and students from other divisions twice at the PRCs. So it's like, why we put all the students in one division in a big office rather than we just mix them together? Because I met a student from ITS in one class, and I later we became good friends, and he introduced me to the ITS group, and then I got to meet also people from ERE. But then I figured out if I discuss my research with them, they can actually give me more constructive feedback than my colleagues in PARS, who are all the way trained in social science and they know everything that I talk about already. And so I think there can be real benefits to if you have interaction with people from other divisions, but that's not, the interaction among divisions is not institutionalized here. So we don't have the opportunity to do that really. It's on personal basis. If you know all these people around, then you can benefit from that.
How does that affect the quality of your? What does that affect most?
Sometimes I feel like I love to know more people around here, but I don't have the chance to do that. So, I mean, we had an orientation thing for first year students, but then, as I said, the PRCs are the only chances they get mixed with all these different students. And even at PRCs, it's pretty ridiculous that they put all students in one division in one room.
Right.
So even if you go to PRC, you can stay in that one room the whole day without talking to any people from other divisions.
Right. What is the main reason behind wanting to meet other people from? How would that enrich your experience here at HKU?
Well, as I said, I think I'm lucky to get a chance to talk with people from ITS and EOE about my research, and I think they can really contribute to my research or the way I present my research. So, yeah, so it's also like I have this positive experience, so I naturally want more experience like this.
Right.
But I found that that's sometimes really hard to do, because you have to rely on your own to, meet people and set up things.
So the social side, you think can be, because of the structure of, or the way things are laid out, you don't really have the opportunity to mix with people outside your division, and that is something that takes away from the quality of your social.
Yeah, I would love to see if I can just naturally meet different people rather than I have to strive for it.
Right. How about the quality of your work? How does that? What affects the quality of your work? What is missing that could enhance the quality of your work?
I think the faculty pretty much provide decent facilities and funding, everything that you need to do the work really. But sometimes you feel that because I think it's not anybody's fault that sometimes PhD students think they are the only person in this faculty that's doing that topic, and you can only talk with your supervisor. But I think that's normal even in around the world. PhD students feel lonely in that way.
Did you say lonely?
Well, I mean, being the only person in the faculty doing that topic.
Is that how you feel?
Sometimes, but I have a colleague working on similar topics, so that's pretty beneficial because we can read each other's manuscripts and give comments.
In your opinion, in an ideal situation, what would help you feel less lonely?
Well, it would be really nice if you can have a group of people working on similar topics, but that's rare. I mean, anywhere. So I don't think you can really, blame anyone. That's not the case.
Right. And it sounds like you have quite a good relationship with your supervisor, and your supervisor is someone who you could speak to about things.
Yeah, I sometimes think if he can be more pushy, I'll benefit more. And I like his the flexibility he gave me to explore things.
So he's flexible, but you could use a little bit more.
Yeah, but there's also balance there.
Right. Okay. What about this last question? How have community and institutional expectations affected your perceptions of self, success, and desirability of achieving your goal?
What do you mean by community? Just
Well,
people around here?
Mm-hmm. I guess specifically, how, as a mainland student in Hong Kong, what affects your perception of self, if anything? Or has anything affected it?
No. I can't think of anything that I as a person have changed since my time in Hong Kong. No.
Yeah. You mentioned at the beginning that that people tend to stay in groups, so like the mainlanders hang out with mainlanders. Is that do you like that?
I don't really stick to them though.
Who do you? Oh, you mix around.
Yeah.
Okay, and you find it easy to mix around?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
I think as long as you have the willingness, it's pretty easy.
So it's a matter of willingness and not.
Yeah, but sometimes people think like my English is not good, or I don't know what to talk with these, foreigners.
Right.
But I think that's more like excuses that they give to themselves. But I don't think that's really the case. I mean.
Okay. Sorry.
Do you also interview undergraduates?
No, we don't. No, this is.
I would think undergraduates would have like a big shock about the concept of self and success.
Right, because it's such a big life transition.
Right.
But we're interested also in how the experience affects the quality of work produced. I think maybe undergraduates is something that the researchers might do in the future. But yeah, I feel like most of the things that your experience seems generally positive. There's nothing that I can really nitpick at. You sound quite satisfied with your supervisor relationship, your accommodation, your social life. You think it's you're very willing to mingle with other people, and it sounds like the only thing that is really missing is perhaps negative is the how the divisions and how that's kind of a barrier to interactions, like prevents you from meeting other people. Not prevents you, doesn't give you the opportunity to meet other people.
Yeah, but sometimes I think maybe that's because I'm just lazy and I expect to hide from the faculty, because that's not it's not their duty to help students mingle with other students.
Right. But it sounds like you're generally quite sociable. Maybe that's why.
Yeah. I guess my experience in the US really helps, because I used to be very quiet and I like to do things alone. I still like to do things alone, but I'm more open-minded. Well, I think in terms of negative experience in social life, I think sometimes it's the mainlander group that can really put pressure on me, because if for a period of time I don't really stick to that group, and I sometimes feel I become an outsider, and that feeling is not so good, because I think I still identify myself as a mainlander Chinese and a member of that group. So if only because I also socialize with other people that I somehow feel I'm treated as an outsider, I would that's not what I expected.
So are you saying that you you're treated like an outsider because you socialize with people outside of the mainlander group?
Well, I don't want to generalize in a way, but it's maybe just the group we have in our office, because they go to the same canteen, eat together, like doing shopping together, working together, going home together every day.
Right.
And if for 1 week or so I was out and for a conference or for several meals I was eating with other people, then when I come back, I always get the sense that I'm not quite belong here anymore. But that's not. Maybe that's natural too. But I mean, if you really want me to think about negative experience in social life, then that's it. And sometimes I feel really.
Which group would you like to belong to, or do you even want there to be such distinct groups, or like what are your thoughts on that?
I don't like small groups.
I don't like
small groups. I think one thing that's good about going out to study, not going out, you can do that in mainland China too. Let me phrase it. I think one thing good about you have a community of PhD students that you actually can have the space to work together is that you can interact with people and learn from these people.
You can what, sorry?
You can interact with all these people and learn from them. Like, even if their topics are not related to your own, you can always learn, their life experience, methodology, and all this stuff. So I don't really understand why do you have to, choose to stick in one small group in that community. I mean, you miss the whole, opportunity this to open up and enrich yourself in a sense. Sorry. So I was like, I don't like small groups, and also the faculty already put us in small groups.
Right.
So why in that huge office you still have tiny groups?
Right. What are some reasons that you think people might want to stay together instead of doing what you're doing, which is more seems like you see the value in interacting. What do you think? What are some of the reasons why people might want to stick together?
Well, first I have to tell you I don't really know, but my guess is sometimes it's all about personality.
Personality.
And the other is maybe just because what I feel if I leave that group for a while and come back. So they have this pressure that these are my friends, this is group I stick to. So the longer you stay in that pattern, the harder it makes you to go out.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Right.
So I think that's part of the reason too. And the third is really when you first arrive here, if you can have people who speak the same language and people who actually understand, your difficulties being here, then it naturally sticks to that group. So for mainlanders, when we first come here, the first friends we make are mainlanders.
Right.
That's pretty natural. But the thing is, after the initial period of, adapting into this environment, would you choose to go out again, or would you just stick there for 4 years?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
Good points. Cool. Okay. Well, just before we finish, is there anything you'd like to add, or anything that you think we didn't really cover?
I'm not so sure about the. Do you have a focus, or do you just interesting general experience with you?
We're interested in the experience, and then we're trying to pick out common themes that participants are identifying. We want to use our research to inform future policies and best practice. So if there's something that's constantly coming up, that's something that we want to explore. But yeah, so
cool. I was wondering, like, will you really find, Mainlanders actually think about different things than international students?
What do you mean?
I think people from other countries actually have a higher level of socialization here than Mainlanders do. That's like normal pattern.
Okay. That is because of what?
I don't know. Well, maybe because I think the case is we have so many Mainlanders here. But if you're like international student, if you're from England, or if you're from Bangladesh, you're from Tanzania, you'll probably be the only person in the office from that country.
Right.
So they don't have this ready-made group that they can stick to. So they have to, in a way, to socialize around with other people from other countries.
And you think that this ready-made group perhaps is quite maybe comfortable for people, and then it's almost like, if you're already in this group, why should you?
It's fantastic if you go to a new place and you have a group there that share your values, culture.
But you have that group, but yet you also have.
I don't think like I have this group. I really appreciate that, but I don't think I have the obligation to stick to that group.
Right, of course not. And you mentioned earlier that perhaps that's personality that kind of defines whether or not you.
I think that's. I'm talking about like stereotypes, because the Chinese assumed to be less socialized and less social and more self-centered, just don't want to talk too much. Right? We do have that stereotype, right?
I don't know. Okay. And you think that in bringing that up, what is your point? What point was your point in bringing the idea of stereotypes up? Is that most mainlanders are conforming to it, or are not conforming to it, or you don't conform to it, or?
I guess I know what I experienced with the group in my office pretty much conforms.
Okay, got it. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, well, I think that's our time. If there's nothing else you'd like to discuss, we can end it there.
Yeah.
Yeah?